Yeah, well, good afternoon again. Really, thank you so much for joining us today for this presentation in a series we've been doing all semester on Jewish culture and anti-Semitism. And this is the last event in that series, and it's appropriate that we have such a wonderful partner, the Butterfly Project, with us, who's been on campus before, and we continue to build that partnership and look forward to doing that even more in the future. So it's a wonderful way to bring to a conclusion a wonderful series this semester. My name is Michael Lovett Collier. I work here at USD as the Assistant Vice President for Mission and Ministry, and I have the pleasure and the privilege of working really closely with Glenda, with USD Hillel and other partners. This series this semester has been co-sponsored by the College of Arts and Sciences, the Humanities Center, USD Hillel, and Mission and Ministry. Just a few tips on how to use Zoom for all of us, especially Este's dog. We ask you to keep yourself muted throughout. At the end, or when there's time, we'll have the opportunity to have questions and answers that we can facilitate using the chat, or we can just unmute people. And please know that we are recording this so that we can post it and share it with those who couldn't be with us live today. So with that said, thank you again for joining us, and it's my pleasure now to invite Glenda.
Hi, everybody. My name is Glenda Sachs-Jaffe. I'm the campus director of USD Hillel. Thank you all for being here, and we are just thrilled to have everyone. Partnership across faiths is really a true reflection of USD's leadership, and it means so much to us that we are all learning together today. This is Hillel's 4th year being officially part of USD, and it has been an amazing collaboration. Hillel encourages students of all backgrounds to form deep personal connections to Jewish life, learning in Israel, through exploration, leadership, and a sense of belonging. Our goal is to help students find their path to help make the world a better place. During the pandemic, we pivoted to continue providing a support and care for students where they need it most. This has been achieved through meaningful religious holidays, weekly Shabbats, learning, social connections, and volunteering. Hillel is there for each person. And since Hillel at USD is part of all the campuses in San Diego, we have connected students, and it has been so heartwarming to see friendships made through Hillel. Our latest program is a huge social justice service learning opportunity that is open to students of all faiths. I'd love for any of you to be involved in Hillel. I hope to connect with you. I will give my email in the chat, so please do write to me. But for now, I want to introduce the amazing Cheryl and the Butterfly Project. Cheryl Ratner-Price is the co-founder and executive director of this project. She works strategically in her role to create public and private partnerships with an emphasis on healing power of art and memorial making to build connection and community. Passionate about art, education, and tolerance, Cheryl's role with the Butterfly Project has expanded nationally and globally, working with educators in Poland, Germany, and Israel. Also, Jan Landau is the co-founder and member of the board of directors and education team leader. Jan has over 30 years experience as a teacher and administrator. She was looking for a way to bring Holocaust remembrance to elementary school in an age-appropriate way. She was inspired by the documentary Paperclips and also the well-known poem The Butterfly, which was written by Pavel Friedman, a child in a concentration camp. Jan chose the butterfly, a beautiful symbol of hope and freedom for children to memorialize the 1.5 million children who perished in the Holocaust. She enlisted the talents of Cheryl Ratner-Price, and together with other volunteers, they created the Butterfly Project, which was originally known as Zichron V'Tikva, which means remembrance and hope. So now over to Cheryl and her amazing team.
Thank you, Glenda. Thank you, Michael. It's really, really powerful to be back engaged and doing this work across different faiths and backgrounds is really central to our work with the Butterfly Project, that we come together and build bridges and create understanding and belonging for people of all faiths, and that they should know that everyone that we touch, we really recognize that we all have the power to, one person to have the power to make that difference. The difference between someone deciding to be fearful and hateful towards someone else or opening up and having compassion and understanding towards someone else's experience. And it's this bridge building that we've been doing with University of San Diego. And it really truly brings me chills when I see students of all backgrounds and faculty on campus rallying together towards creating a better world for all of us. So we're thrilled to go forward and do more programming with USD as long as you'll have us. And, let me just see Judy. So what I am really honored to do every day is I get to work with an incredible team of educators, Jan Landau, Arlene Keyes, Sonia Fox-Olbaum, and Judy Gottschalk, who you will get to meet in our film in a few minutes called Sharing Our Family Stories. And what these incredible educators have done is they have synthesized their experience in the classrooms, their understanding of children and adults, and they have a point of view where they not only can share dramatic pieces of their family's stories as lessons of how to be an upstander, how to be resilient, how to be kind, how to be courageous. But as educators, they understand how to tell these stories in a way that it draws out from the participants and the students that they want to be a part of making this world a better place. So I think that what we should probably do is we will pivot to showing our wonderful short film for you all. And then after, you'll have a chance to directly ask Arlene and Judy and Jan questions and find out more deeply about their family's journey and why they care so much about the Butterfly Project's work, and commit as retired educators to just never stop and keep expanding our lessons and all that we do. So I think I will start to roll, if I could find my link. Where is it? Here we go. Let's make sure it works. Let me get it first here, share screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, and here we go.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Ratner-Price. I'm the Executive Director and co-founder of the Butterfly Project. Those who teach the Holocaust know the most impactful way for students to learn is to hear the survivors' stories, to hear their courage and what they went through and somehow kept their humanity.
You kids should know what happened.
But as we know, the survivors won't be with us forever. So we need to step in and tell and retell their stories and keep them alive and vivid in our memories. That's why we're focusing in this video on passing the torch to the next generations.
Well, I learned about my in-laws' background, my father-in-law and mother-in-law being survivors from my husband, and at that time we were dating. And my parents are American, and I had never met a survivor before. This is my father-in-law, Max Landau, the oldest survivors here in San Diego. These are his parents, and this is his younger brother, Joseph, and his older brother, Munio. Joseph and his parents were killed in the Holocaust, and Munio, after the war, he immigrated to Israel. And once he got there, my father-in-law was intending on joining him there with my mother-in-law, but he told him that life was very, very hard there. And so my father-in-law, when he got to Ellis Island, they asked him if he wanted to go to Canada or to San Diego, and he said, "Where is it warm?" And they said San Diego, and he said, "That's where I want to go." So that's how our family got to San Diego. It was amazing to me, actually, to meet the survivors and actually see on some of their arms the numbers and hear some of their stories. I read somewhere that the biggest factor to having a happy life is to feel grateful. And if you talk to the survivors of the Holocaust, they are extremely grateful for the lives that they have. And that's something, if they can go through the time that they did, the most tragic of times, losing most of their family members and suffering themselves in such a way, starvation, torture, and yet come through that time period and be hopeful and grateful. There's a lesson there for us all, whether we're Jewish or not, that we really need to be grateful for what our lives have given us. And I appreciated what I learned from them. We've had so much feedback from students who will say that, I read about this, but I didn't really know that it was real. But coming in and hearing the stories from second gens about their parents, the kids are identifying with them. They're saying, this is what happened to their parents. I have a mother and father. This is what happened to my grandparents. I have a grandparent. I can't imagine if this had happened to them.
Well, I think it is through story, telling the stories of our parents, how they survived. I think my mother's message was very clear, and she always stated it, was that stand up. Do not be a bystander. When you hear hate, when you hear intolerance, and you see injustice, stand up and fight. Thinking about my mother makes me think about the gifts that she gave me. And it is truly the gift of resilience to persevere under the worst odds. Nothing good comes from hate, and that we must work to ensure that people understand, where does hate come from? How do we turn that into love and acceptance?
Your dad and mom going to a concentration camp?
I think it's through the questions that students ask you afterwards. And if you've encouraged them to ask questions, questions are always the most important. We as educators should be asking the big questions and giving the students the space to also answer them or to ask their own questions.
I was very young. My father was very chatty and was always talking about the Holocaust. We didn't have much family, so when friends came over, they would instantly go to talking about, do you remember so-and-so or where we were from? My mother, unable to speak about things. It was very difficult for her. At a young age, we were allowed to be in the room and we would listen and we would ask questions, so I was very aware. And with my mother, I was very aware of her silence. But what struck me always about her is that she's a survivor of Auschwitz and she had a number. And I know sometimes she would take her hand and kind of cover her number or touch her number. It was her way of kind of remembering. It was very different because during holidays, we would go to the distant relatives. An example is my cousin, who's really my third cousin. We actually call each other sister because she's an only child and I don't have sisters. So we kind of adopted each other to become family members. But without grandparents, I think it was very, very difficult. And at some points, I was even embarrassed that I didn't have that. But one thing I have to give my parents a lot of credit for was they became attached to the survivor community here in San Diego. And for example, in the summers, we would go to La Jolla Cove every summer, and all the people became our family. So literally, we would go from blanket to blanket. The parents would play cards, they'd play soccer, whatever it was that they did, but we knew everybody. There was a time in San Diego back in the 50s where every family, if you were a survivor family, knew the other survivor. So we created family. In the summertime, we had an incident, I probably was about 12, where a truck, an open-bedded truck, came up and there were young people in brown shirts with a swastika flag. And for me, I did start to panic thinking, oh my God, it's happening. They're coming for us. And our parents did not hover. They did not freak out. They just jumped into action. And when they came onto the grassy beach area with the swastika flag, one of my mother's friends grabbed the flag. My mother sat on it and the men stood up to them. And so I was very proud that they didn't, cower to them. There was no fist fights. It was just a lot of yelling back and forth. And then the police came. So I did experience that. I believe as an educator, this has always been a part of me. When creating is a passion, and I have a story that I have background on that I can tell. And so I choose to tell it. I also am second generation Holocaust survivor, daughter of. Both my parents did not have any family as well. I don't have the pleasure of having the pictures of family members. I do have a picture of my father when he was 19 years old. And I used to love it when he showed this picture because he'd always say, see how handsome I was? I looked like everybody else. And then the other picture he would show would be this picture. What do you think he's wearing in this picture? Absolutely. He escaped from a death march. They were on their way to a camp called Dachau, and he ran away. He said, I'm going to risk my life and try to get away. And he did. And because he did this heroic thing, I have his uniform. And what I'm going to show you is something that you probably will never see in San Diego. This is the only uniform that I have ever seen here. This is a museum piece. This is a piece that you'll see in Washington, D.C. at the Holocaust Museum. If you're ever in Los Angeles, you'll be able to see this uniform there. And this was my father's uniform. The uniform itself, would you feel that? Does that feel like something comfortable to wear? Not really. And can you imagine if it's really, really, really hot outside, would you want to wear something like this? Do you think it's going to keep you very warm when it's really cold outside? No, it probably won't. But this is what he had to wear. He was stripped of the dignity of having his name, David Fox. Nobody knew him as David Fox. But he had a number in his hat and a number right here. And that's what he was called, that number. But something very unique and special about my father's jacket was that he made a little hole right here. Because in this hole, he decided he wanted to keep a special utensil. Well, when they used to be fed in the camps, they were given a very, very poor soup that may have had water, maybe a little bit of potato in it, not a whole lot of nutritional things. But he decided instead of using his hands like this to lift the bowl to his face, he wanted to use, what would you use to eat your soup? A spoon. So he found a spoon and he would hide his spoon in his jacket right here so that he could be like a normal human being, eat with dignity. And so that was very, very important for him. So take a good look at this, because in your closet, you have wonderful clothes, all different colors and things like this, but he had to wear this for 5 years, very long period of time. Now I want to show you this photograph. My parents were both in the Holocaust. My mother lost her entire family. I always thought that they were very courageous to try to live normal lives after what they had gone through. I know they were extremely grateful to be in the United States, and they loved this country so much. My dad would putter his lawn every weekend. He was out there trimming, snipping, fertilizing, and all the neighbors would say, Henry, give it a rest. It looks beautiful. And he would always say, I'm not from this country, but I want to show this country that I'm so grateful to be here that I want my home and my property to look the nicest. My father was a very sensitive man, and he really missed his family. And he certainly had a lot of guilt about all of them being gone. My mom had nightmares, and I always knew the nightmares had something to do with the Holocaust. But it was only years later that I found out the specific reason and nightmare. I don't know how we knew what had happened. I mean, I don't remember my parents sitting us down and saying, this is what happened to us. But I think from hanging around with the children of survivors and then being in school and finding out about World War II and that we just put the puzzle pieces together. You know, they were Holocaust survivors. They had a group called the New Life Club that met on the last Sunday of every month for, well, it's still going on. I feel like it was maybe when I was 11, 12, 13 that they felt they could talk to me. You know, being Jewish, that most of the kids we knew were not Jewish, and they had to tell us, explain why we didn't have family. You know, well, why don't I have a grandma, any grandparents or aunts, uncles, cousins? No one. Why are we so alone? That was the hardest thing for me. It's still very hard to live with. My mother was about 5'2", pretty small lady. She was always her whole life pretty courageous, pretty gutsy lady. Helen was my mom's surrogate mom, adopted mom in concentration camp. So my mom was in 2 camps. The first one was Schatzlau. The second one was Blechemer. And so she was there with Helen and another friend, Ruth, and they bonded very quickly, the 3 of them. And because Helen was 9 years older, a little bit older, they both kind of looked to Helen as their adopted mom. And she came from a family of caterers in Poland. And so when Helen got there and they read her name, the SS said, "Are you from that family in Poland that are caterers?" And she said yes. Told her she was going to cook for them, for the SS. And Helen was, while she was doing that, my mother and Ruth were, they did slave labor. My mother was breaking rocks to make into gravel, cleaning the concrete floors in the barracks, and they were starving. The concentration camp felt that they really didn't need to feed them much because they were going to be transported to a death camp eventually. So I remember my mother saying they gave us dirty dishwater, which for her that meant soup. There was nothing much in the soup. So they were starving. And Helen at night would take any food, anything she could fit under her uniform, and sneak it to my mom and Ruth to keep them alive. And she did this for a while. I'm not sure exactly how long. And then the SS caught her, and they beat her up very badly. They said, "You're not going to do this anymore. You're going to stop." And she stood up to them and she said, "I'm not. These are my friends, and they need to be fed. And if you want your food, if you want me to cook your food, and you want me to make your fancy parties, you're going to let me continue." And we did. And to me, that was a miracle. Upstander. What does an upstander do? When I'm in the classroom and we talk about the power of one, and Helen is not our only example, I always tell the kids that because the 3 of them lived, 22 lives were created. It's a privilege to be invited to speak. I don't consider it work. This is what I want to do, and this is what I'm dedicating, I hope, the rest of my life to do, because it's that important to me that the people you see that are in need are worthy of respect and kindness. That now your responsibility is to be the upstander. And those that perished in the Holocaust lost their voices. The 1.5 million children don't have a voice, but you do. And we're counting on you to be that voice for them and for yourself.
Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. As you could see from that short film, we are involved with young students, but we have had programming everywhere from, preschool to senior citizens and college students and high school students. And so it wasn't represented in those classrooms or spaces, but you get the idea. So now, I think, Michael, should we open up for questions for our education team to maybe take everyone off of mute? Or Jan, would you like to say anything to kick it off?
Well, I think that one of the things that I sort of is missing from the movie is the fact of the lessons of the Holocaust that are really important that we impart to all age groups. And these lessons are the ones that we've learned from survivors, our parents. One of them is the necessity of perseverance and resilience, that most European Jews spent years either in hiding or in labor or death concentration camps. How did they possibly survive? And we learned that it was because of the power of hope. We learned from survivors that they were able to survive because they had hope that the next day would bring them their freedom. Also, we learned about the dangers of hatred, bigotry, bullying, prejudice, and indifference. The profound impact of upstanders for justice. You know, it's thanks to upstanders, people who helped the Jewish people, that more lives weren't lost during the Holocaust. And this came out very significantly in the movie, which was the importance of gratitude. The survivors who came to the United States after the war were so grateful for the lives they were able to lead in a country where they could be free to practice their religion and where laws protected them from evil dictators. And these lessons apply to everyone, regardless of the color of their skin, their religion, or their gender. And that's why, and especially today, it seems like these lessons are even more relevant to impart to the people that we talk to. And if there are questions, are there any questions that are coming in?
Yeah, I just unmuted everyone. You should be able to take yourself off mute and ask a question, but perhaps I can get us started if that's okay.
Sure.
Jan or others, Cheryl. You know, one of the reasons what we thought it was really important to have this series is some of the research that's been done in recent years about the declining awareness about the Holocaust and the percentage of Americans and Europeans who can even, you know, recite basic facts about it. I'm just curious if you've seen that in your work.
Over here. Yes, there are no doggies to bother you.
I'll mute everybody again just so we can hear the response to that. So the question is just, have you seen any change in the last 5 years or so in general awareness about the facts of the Holocaust? And now I have to unmute you, sorry.
You know, it is somewhat, I don't know that we are doing our best to change those statistics, but even when we've gone into classrooms and the teachers themselves have been so unaware of, you know, really what the facts of what's happened, you know, during the Holocaust. And, you know, I don't know statistically if this is improving. You know, we just hope that our efforts are going to help to change those statistics that are there. Cheryl, do you know anything more about that, or Judy, Arlene?
I think the study was fairly recent, so I don't think, you know, we're coming upon teachers who are, you know, young teachers that are 21, 22. They've never heard of the Holocaust themselves. So, you know, it's not something that people necessarily learn about, certainly in high school or in college. So, you know, it's a double challenge there.
We're doing everything we can, you know, when we work with, for example, we worked with a city in San Diego, National City, a while back, and we had to really slow down. Our educators that you're meeting here had to slow down their presentations to just make sure some of these young teachers could catch up a little bit, and we direct steadily towards resources. And, Jan and Judy and Arlene can talk a little bit about the kind of the pre-packet work that the educators can get from us, because we don't want to talk down to any teachers, but we want to shepherd them through at least enough resources that they can gain some confidence that they can go into this complicated and difficult topic and guide their students through in a safe way. Like, I think you call that safe in and safe out. And that applies all the way up through college and through any audience that we're working with, that, we don't want people to run away from this topic. We know how relevant it is to today's escalating racism and problems. And even through the pandemic, we've been really quite busy. There's a lot of work to be done. We need, all kinds of support to grow the way we need to, but we're doing the work every day to equip teachers with more and to help with our presentations to help their students.
Cheryl, do you remember how many states require Holocaust education?
I think it's only 15 or 16 that it's
13,
mandated,
15.
right, Judy?
Yes.
So it doesn't mean that they're doing a good job, even if it's mandated.
True.
And our goal is the most important thing, I feel, Jan, Arlene, Judy, when we have a school where there's multiple teachers, or like at a university, like let's say the, different like interdisciplinary departments, like we had Michael coming in to see our film and supporting each other through education and history and peace and justice. And at a school, having, teachers across the history and the English and equity and inclusion disciplines now, then those teachers gain a sense of, we're going the distance together. We're not just on my own trying to do this challenging work. And then the reward, the students, maybe we can hear more about some of the impact on the young minds, that they know that their butterfly really means something.
I had a question about this new ethnic studies program in all the schools. Will that include any kind of Holocaust studies or anything? Are you familiar with this whole new program with ethnic studies that's going to be mandatory in all the schools?
I admittedly do not know that.
Yeah, is that California, Glenda, that you're?
Yeah, but there've been a lot of issues. I've signed numerous petitions and gone to many meetings that Jews were not painted in a good light at all. And I just wondered if there was anything Holocaust involved in that. No.
Not that came across my desk, and I think it would have through various things. I do not think that.
Maybe that's something to look into, because I know there was definitely negative comments about Jews, which has been removed, but that might be a good place to get Holocaust studies in the schools.
It's been pretty remarkable during the pandemic. Beth Leacha, who is in the room with us, is our programming manager, and we've had to, and Margot Dinnerman is here too, our development director, who I'll just introduce quickly. We had a wonderful, challenging surprise in the middle of the pandemic when in Broward County, Florida, the Equity and Inclusion Department of the district decided all the 6th grade art classes are going to be, jointly working on Holocaust education, using the Butterfly Project as the one of the main tools and vehicles, and working with second generations and their stories and the history in the English departments. So 90 6th grade classrooms were really supported through the equity and diversity funding to get the students into the topic in a broad way, where the whole, now they're going to have a major installation. So it's happening, and I guess it will be revealed more for California what we're really going to be able to do.
I've given everybody permission to unmute themselves. So if you have a question, feel free to voice it now to Cheryl or any of the educating team. Esty, I see. Yeah, go for it.
I have a question to Cheryl or Arlene, Jen, Judy. Is it possible to approach school districts? I know we can start small, only in San Diego maybe, but approaching school districts, having a course, I don't know, maybe you have something like this, having something ready-made for them, and on Teachers' Day, the in-service days where only teachers go to school, maybe go there for an hour and give the teachers some kind of material, educate the teachers, because wherever the teachers came from and whatever colleges they came from, if they have not learned it in high school and they have not learned it in college, maybe this would be the district's responsibility to educate those teachers. I don't know if you have anything like this or if it's possible to do it.
Well, I'll take that on. Esty, thank you for that. I think that has been our goal, and the Butterfly Project is, it's twofold that are woven together. One is, of course, getting into the classrooms, and teaching teachers and teaching students about the Holocaust with a gentle approach. And then having the children buy in with the memorial, with doing the butterflies. Sadly, I was also, Jan and I also were school principals, and you think it'd be easy. You think this topic would be easy, but we have tried and tried in many different ways to get into the school districts and be part of their professional development. And I think, school districts have so many priorities, and teachers only have so much time. A lot, especially in San Diego and in California, the unions, and I'm not negative about unions, don't get me wrong, but they do limit the amount of time and that teachers can spend in PD and after school and this and that. So up against a lot of obstacles, and it isn't for lack of our trying to get in the door, believe me. If you have more ideas, please let us know. We'd love to know.
Judy, I want to pick up on exactly where you're taking us. We have had some fantastic teacher training successes in Chula Vista in a very broad way throughout Sweetwater District, and also at the Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust. We work with teachers and in training, and in a few other places. We partner with Facing History, which is a marvelous organization that really has very in-depth, specific historical resources. And then we bring in our stories and the butterflies. But I think that a track that we have so much to gain is maybe really within the educational departments of universities, like University of San Diego. We would love to really, we know it's really hard once the teachers are in the schools to get their time, right? And so hopefully we can really get more closely connected with more teachers, whether they're in training or they're out there and they need help. But it's a priority.
Well, the question I'm about to ask might be risky, and that is going to reveal a little bit of naivete on my part. But, there was that one quote in the movie we saw about where does hate come from? And I guess, just based on your experience of doing this education work for years, how do you answer that question?
Arlene, do you want to take that?
I'm not sure I'm understanding the question about where does he come from.
Where does hate come from?
Oh, hate. Excuse me. Isn't that the question of our lives? Where does it come from? With a lot of students, you'll see that it comes, we surmise that maybe it starts in the home. We had an incident at in Tierra Santa where a little boy in 6th grade made some anti-Semitic slurs against the only Jewish teacher there. Called her names and said to another boy, she's a Jew with a big nose, something, the typical kind of anti-Semitic slurs. The year after that happened, we came to the classroom to do our lessons. And the teacher pointed out, without him knowing it, the 2 boys that were involved. And we just went about doing our lesson. But then all of a sudden, this one little guy burst into tears, just sobbing. And we found out that he, in his mind, he didn't think any of this was real. And he didn't realize he was talking about real people. But he was just spewing this hate from what he was picking up. So if we could answer the question about hate and where it comes from and how to solve it, we could solve the problems of the world. But one thing my father, who was in Dachau, impressed upon my brother and I when we were young, he said, you must respect everyone, no matter what they look like. You don't have to like them, but you must respect everyone, because if the Jews had been respected in Europe and in Germany, the Holocaust would not have happened. So
I would say, I would answer, I think all of us, maybe I hope on this call, we know what hate looks like. We've seen it, especially, at least for me, last several years. We've seen many incidences of hate. The question is, I think the question is, so as my mother would say, how do you stand up? What is the action-oriented question? What do we do? And, whether it's as simple as writing letters or calling our congresspeople or marching or whatever, what do you personally, what can you do? And I think that is the question that is so troubling and so difficult as we sit in our elite homes and lead our entitled lives. How do we address this? More questions than answers, Michael, I think.
Yes. But being an upstander is one of the key things that we try to impart on the students when we go to the classrooms. What does an upstander look like? How can we respond? We try to teach the kids actually how to verbally respond to bullying, because the Holocaust did start with names, name calling, bullying. And one of the most important things we try to impart on the students is the importance of being an upstander and speaking up when they see injustice happening. And if they can't do it themselves, we teach them about going to get an adult, a teacher, the principal, a brother or a sister on the playground. But one of the most important things to do is to be an upstander.
Another thing I think that's important is, really addressing children when they're young. Just we leave them with the message, choose to be kind. You can just start to change the world the minute you leave, your classroom. Choose to be kind. That is important. To teach kids to be respectful of others. When they, are young, and build that up. in their minds, that that's something that they need to, to be aware of, to treat others with kindness.
I also want to add that, we are so fortunate that, we're at the intersection between education and the arts and history. And so when a mural or a butterfly display exists and there's framing around it that has messaging about the power of your words, or to stand up and to realize we all need to look out for each other, those are subtle, but we know that they're effective. Students come back, they visit their butterflies, they know that we all need to be continually pointed between our better angels and our not so great angels, right? So it's a dynamic process. It's not something that one day I just put the hat on and I'm always that kind of, kind person. We all have our challenges, and for those that, I think one of the things that's really great about the Butterfly Project's work is that we're not busy telling people, shame on you for, what happened. We're saying, what are we going to do now together?
Thank you. Yeah, thanks everyone for your responses. There's a question in the chat also about what kind of feedback do you get from students and teachers? And what type of commitment do you get from students?
Go, Jan.
We've really received a lot of positive feedback, and I think from both, from teachers and from students. Teachers who year after year look for us to come back into their classrooms. Students who have told them that one of the most meaningful lessons or experiences that they've had in school has been the Butterfly Project. We also give reflection sheets to students after we're in the classroom with them, so that we can see whether our lessons, have made an effect on them. We have thousands of those reflection sheets that are very encouraging, about what they intend to do to be an upstander in their lives. We offer social justice activities to the teacher in that pre-packet that Cheryl mentioned before. Things like establishing clubs at the school, to collect socks for the needy, or to have lunch programs where you're purposefully sitting with students that you normally wouldn't sit with, to have a conversation with. So there are lots of things that we want to leave the students with. To make the world a better place. Well, how do I do that? Some suggestions, and some that I hope certainly that will be initiated by the teachers and the students themselves. Lots of positive feedback that keeps us going, actually, because this is not an easy thing for Judy and Sonia and Arlene to do, specifically because of their parents' stories. So it's what keeps us going in our retirement, the positive feedback that we've received.
Thank you. Michael, do you want for me to take a couple of minutes to show everyone who might not know what USD, a little bit about Butterfly Project and what USD has already been involved with, or do we have more questions?
Yeah, I think Cheryl, if you could, and then, yeah, I can share a little information in Glenda about what we hope to do in the fall as well. Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll do that then. Okay, so starting here, our mission, we are a call to action through the arts, using the lessons of the Holocaust to educate about the dangers of hatred and bigotry through the painting of ceramic butterflies, permanently displayed around the world to memorialize each of the 1.5 million children, Jewish and non-Jewish children, who were murdered in the Holocaust. We are based, and we could provide this for you as well. This is the original poem written by Pavel Friedman at Theresienstadt concentration camp that inspired Jan Landau to make this project come to life. This is Friedel Dicker Brandeis, who was the art teacher at Terezin, who helped thousands of children to find hope through their imagination, through the art that they created and that she hid in a suitcase before she was ultimately sent to Auschwitz and murdered. But that artwork was discovered. It became the basis of the anthology, I Never Saw Another Butterfly, book of poetry and children's art. This is Arlene Keyes. You saw her in our film and you're speaking with her now in the classroom, Power of One. This is the essential hands-on component. The students paint a butterfly, they read a story specific to a child who was killed. We are growing our biography cards. We're reaching out to second, third, fourth generation families of survivors to gain more stories. And Beth puts these cards together beautifully so that each student takes that card home with them and their butterfly remains with their memorial. This is what painting the butterflies can look like. The young girl is signing a proclamation saying that they pledge to remember the past, act responsibly in the present, and make a more peaceful future. This is our trailer, which we can provide to you of our documentary film, which we showed. Here you could see the Peace and Justice Center and our amazing event that Michael and several other faculty members helped put together. And we had tremendous success with the gratification of everyone staying long after they should have gone home to paint butterflies. They didn't want to leave. This is the combination Changemaker Festival English Literature class at USD. Students, as you can see, highly engaged, really dedicated. And then here's some examples of installations. Some of these are, this is up here, this is University of Arizona, Hillel actually. And this here is local school San Diego and several other installations. That's a lot of it is student driven. The designs are created by the students. Some of it is professionally, architecturally put together. These are major installations that we are thrilled, and we hope to pique your imagination that maybe USD could have an installation along these lines where it just grows every year with more butterflies. A gathering spot to talk about tolerance. These are some of the countries. We are in many, many countries. We can provide you with some details about where we are in the US and around the world. We're in Holocaust museums. The National World War II Museum in New Orleans did a wonderful program. And then really, this is it. It's empowering students and you and I to stand up to injustice. That's the essence of our work, and we come together around that.
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. So I'm happy to say that we are, because of some of those events that Cheryl showed pictures of, we have over 200 butterflies made by USD students, faculty, staff, or other community members, and we will be looking in the future for the right beautiful spot to display them in some place on campus. And then in the fall, when more people are vaccinated and it's more safe to gather in person, we do hope to have an event where we can partner again with the Butterfly Project and invite students to paint butterflies and get the biography of the child and feel that connection.
Sam, I see a question in the chat from Sam. The significance of the biography card is that we currently recognize that we probably have one of the largest collections of children's biography cards, children that were killed in the Holocaust, that we have been working with Holocaust educational resources to get information about some of the children and from families of survivors about anything we can find out for this child that was killed, that they grew up in a certain town, that they had a family that was involved in this kind of business, and that their life was cut short, and that the biography card serves as the remembrance, and that child painting the butterfly with that biography card is the hope that they remember that child. They say their name when they're painting the butterfly. We go around and each child says the name of who they're painting for. and they form a connection that that child is not forgotten.
Cheryl? Hi, it's Esti. I'd like to share something with you. It's something personal that happened to me 2 weeks ago, a few days before Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day. My parents left Poland and arrived in Israel in 1933, just in time. But my mother's siblings, 3 of them, escaped with her, but 3 did not. I heard 2 weeks ago that one brother and his wife with a little girl of 6 arrived in Romania 2 days after the Nazis took occupation, and they were caught. The little girl was 6 and her name was Esther.
Oh, so sorry.
And I've just learned about it.
Wow.
Maybe we can create a biography card for her together.
Yeah, so we were both named after the same great-grandmother, but I can't believe I only found out this now.
There's so many people affected by this horrific event in history, and it really never ceases to amaze me, the pain, the generational pain that we need to work to honor and help people to carry the legacies of these family members. Thank you.
So Michael, I think you were asking about, research, and, recently, I think the past maybe 10 years, maybe more, but there's been a lot of research around, I think it's called, I want to say eugenics, but, the passing down of post-traumatic stress. And I think it's something interesting that, many, that, children of survivors cope with, but sometimes don't even know it's there, but that's become quite a study and an important part of all of this. It is kind of the gift that keeps on giving. I hate to say it.
Yeah. I just want to say, in the interest of everybody's time, we should end in a timely manner. And of course, this is an ongoing subject. And thank you, Cheryl, for everything you do. Thank you, Michael, for being amazing. We really appreciate your help. And I think we should all somehow keep working on this and see what we can do. And thank you, Cheryl, and your team. You guys are amazing.
Thank you. I certainly don't work alone here, and I'm very grateful. It's a privilege to do this work, and it will really be tremendous to be on campus again at USD. I hope you'll all come. If you haven't painted a butterfly, have one that ends up on campus somewhere at USD, and spread the word.
And let us present to your teachers in the social studies program. Let us present to your teachers. I speak at San Diego State University for Dr. Hillman every semester, and let us speak and talk about education in the schools. That's a beautiful way for us to pass this message on.
Thank you, Judy. Great. All right. Well,
thank you.
Well, and thank you so much for your really focused, your interest and your support for the Butterfly Project, and thank you to University of San Diego for prioritizing this important topic and bringing us all together across faiths. And thank you
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.